Hello and welcome to FTT Chats. I'm Liz Lumley, and this is where we sit down with some of the great and the good of fintech to have a bit of a chat. And today I'm speaking to Martin Markowitz of Silent8. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very, very good. I have to say to the audience, I'm in a pretty good room, but it's we're recording this on a bank holiday Friday here in the UK, which is the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe. So my street, as we're all working from home, is having a block party outside. So if you hear children having lots of fun and music, that's what it is. It's outside my door.
So, like, full disclosure, I have a small puppy at home. So if you hear something barking, that's the puppy.
I'll bring him on in. Well, Martin, I'm going to start with my first question that I ask everybody, which is, who are you and what do you do?
Oh, my name is Martin, and I'm a CEO of Silent8, and I do whatever CEOs are doing. So just basically trying to make everything that we do work. And what we are doing is we're helping our customers fighting financial crime. So for all this stuff around money laundering, terrorism financing, whenever our customers are trying to solve these problems for them, we create tools and we create software for them to make it easier and make it better for for them to win this fight against all these bad actors and whatever they're trying to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, so it's money laundering and KYC. These are huge issues in financial services. What are some of the main problems that the banks and financial institutions are seeing right now around the AML and KYC space?
So the problems around is that, and this is like, so if you ask these guys, they have a lot of problems. It's like, the problem in general is not solved yet.
Yeah.
So if you think about,
I don't think it will ever be solved, really. I mean, there's always going to be.
Yeah, but it's like I look at some statistics, they're a bit scary. People give you some numbers about how big the money laundering problem is, and they give you numbers in trillions of dollars. And then they come back with some official statistics saying, oh, and this is how much we actually seized last year. And these are scary low numbers. Like, so you can assume that if all this bad stuff is such a huge thing, like volume wise, and we're just stopping just a tiny fraction of this, it means that the rest goes through. And it goes through, like, how does it go through? Like, through financial institutions, through the system that we're all using and we're all benefiting from. So the people who are actually combating this financial crime, like, they're doing a lot of great work, but they're not. But they didn't solve the problem yet. So we also are not trying to solve all the problems and solve everything at once. We just tackled something that we thought that it's the most important part. So right now, the way I look at this whole thing is that all the financial institutions set up their infrastructure to capture everything that's even remotely suspicious. So they're looking at everything when they're onboarding a customer, during the cooperation with the customer, through the whole customer life cycle. They're just trying to monitor this customer like left and right and try to pick up everything that's even remotely suspicious for investigation. And if you look at big global banks, if you look at smaller financial institutions, they're all doing a lot of these investigations. Like when it comes to name screening alerts, transaction screening alerts, transaction monitoring alerts, every time something is there to check, they'll just sit on it, check it, do the proper investigation, go through all the evidence, collect additional evidence, and then try to figure out at the end if this is something that we need to be worried about, and if it is, like, why, and then let's take some necessary steps, or is it just some noise and we don't have to worry about? But then again, the important question is, like, why do we decide not to worry about this stuff? So it's not a guessing game. It's a very detailed investigation that's happening every time, and it's and there's some decision that needs to be made every time. So if you're doing these, like, millions of these investigations every year, this becomes a very huge problem, because if you would like to look at more things and do even more of these investigations, somehow you're limited with what your people can actually handle, like with sheer volumes of all this stuff. But also you have a problem with like precision of this work, like accuracy, quality of this work. Like, how do you make sure that if the same case is being handled by someone who's fresh and well trained and well rested right now in the UK, or at the same time it's being handled, if the same case would happen somewhere else around the world when someone is already at the end of their shift the day is almost over, the weekend already almost started, and they're tired, like after this long week of all this work. Like, will they handle this case in the same way than someone, than someone fresh and well rested? So when you're dealing with these volumes of these things, consistency here also plays a huge role. So the problem that we're trying to help with banks is actually, how do you make sure that you're doing all these millions of investigations in a good, scalable way that's also like introduce some level of consistency across your whole footprint? So, and as you can guess, this is only one of the big problems that you have to tackle to basically win this whole war against all these bad guys. So unfortunately, we can't help them with everything, but we're trying to help in this one area.
Yeah, so that kind of leads me to my next question, because what you talked about, I hear a lot from people that work with artificial intelligence and machine learning, taking out some of those human flaws in the process. But I kind of took this from your website. You're training the system to also think like an analyst. How do you take the positive sides of the human actions and not the flaws? How do you train it to think like an analyst?
So this is actually the part of why we have like a big financial institutions actually use product in production. That's why we have customers like Standard Chartered and others who deployed our solution. They're using this solution in real life, because it comes down to the design of the whole product and design of all these algorithms that are doing this job. Because you got this completely right. Like this is a very good question, because think about this. If my solution is trying to learn how people are investigating these cases and how they're coming up with all these conclusions that they're coming up to say, hey, this is something that we don't have to worry about, and this is, on the other hand, is something that we have to worry about, these people will be also making mistakes. So when you're just learning, when you just have a machine that's supposed to learn how they do it, to do it by itself later on, it will pick up all the best practices and will also pick up all these mistakes. So imagine that our machine right now, as we speak, I'm looking at the world clock right now, and what time is it in Singapore? Okay, it's very late in Singapore. So if someone is still at work and they're still solving these alerts somewhere in Southeast Asia, maybe at this point they're just saying, okay, let's just close it and let's start the weekend. If this is what's happening today, our machine would pick this up as potentially a good way of solving alerts. Like, why not? Like, this is what people are doing. Like, this seems like a good idea. So this whole design for the product needs to be done that we're learning everything, but somehow we just have to make sure that that our customers have this ability to see what we've learned and decide which one of these ways of doing these investigations is actually a best practice, and which one of the things that we learned is maybe cutting corners or mistakes. Because you don't want to automate everything. You want machine to be applying best practices and not repeating some of the mistakes that might be happening on the ground for whatever reason. And this is very important, because look how all this investigation changed in the past few short weeks because of the whole pandemic. Like, just because a lot of people doing these investigations are now sent back home and they're doing this work in a completely different setup, and they can't do everything they could do before. At the same time, all the bad guys, they're not doing the same thing. For them, it's Christmas. Just go. Maybe no one. Just let's go. So it's like a perfect storm. Your defenses are a bit down as good guys, while the bad guys are just looking at this. It's like, okay, I was always thinking about when is a good time to push all my bad stuff through. Probably now. It's never going to be a better time. So in this scenario, what we're doing here is super important. Just be able to come into the financial institution and tell them, hey, I understand that you have to look at a lot of things right now. There's a lot of things are happening. You may not have enough resources right now on hand to do this. Invite machine to your team, and let machine become one of your team members that can consistently do this work and help your guys just handle all this mess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, probably my next question is moving into, again, you guys talk a lot about an agile AI environment. But financial institutions deal with a lot of regulated enterprise-wide data. How many barriers does that put in front of that agile AI environment that you're trying to create?
Let's say, so, okay, we talk about AI, we talk about Agile, we talk about all this stuff. Like for me, like the most important thing, for me, it's only tools, like tools to achieve some goal, so tools to solve some problem. Like, so if we could do what we're doing without using AI or without using some different techniques or using different methodologies, trust me, we'll be doing this differently. We're just thinking, okay, that's the problem. This is how I think that solution should look like. So this is how the solution should be addressing a lot of different angles. So we have this thing about how to make sure that the solution is not making mistakes. How do you make sure that you can trust this solution? How do you make sure that, for example, you can verify if the solution is working like you thought? So if we're making a recommendation to say, hey, this is something that you don't have to worry about, how can we argument that, like so that you're comfortable that, yeah, really, like I don't have to worry about this, and and that's it. Like I can trust almost like my life like with this decision. Like I have full trust here. How do we make sure that this will happen? Like how do we make sure that, to your question, that all these data problems are also taken care of? How do we make all this stuff happen? So we just designed the solution to work in this very complex environment, and like you mentioned, this environment is very, very complex. There's like levels of complexity everywhere around us. But we designed this solution just with this kind of like a one purpose, to work in this environment. So we took all these things under consideration at the very early stage when we were like a whiteboarding how it should work, and then when we were validating this whiteboard drawings with our customers, they were pointing out, oh, but this is not going to work with our security. This is something that's not going to work because regulators in this country have this view on how the data should be moved in between between borders. Like, so we were doing a lot of work like this to end up with some design that you could actually put somewhere and work. Like Standard Chartered here is a very good example, because we went live in production with them, I think it was December 2018. So it was over a year ago, almost year and a half ago, that it first started solving real alerts for real customers in real life situations, and it got rolled out into like 60 different markets, like across the whole footprint of the bank, like across all the business lines, all investigations. So this is something that, and we have like a success stories with customers like all around the world. These are all like a big global financial institutions. So if we would miss one of these like items, like you've mentioned, it wouldn't be even possible. So I always thought that our environment around us, it's like we're surrounded by a huge group of people, and almost like every one of them have a veto right. So whatever we try to do, if one of them would say, I don't like it, why? Because just I don't. Like that's it. Like it's not going to move forward. Like this is up to this level. This is so serious stuff that. These are the cases that I always thought that these are the cases that when you think about some like a big sanctions breaches or something like this, you don't need a lot of them. One of them can bring the whole bank down. Like you don't need many mistakes. Like you don't need to make a mistake 1,000 times, million times. You can make a mistake 1,000 times when you're lending someone money. Like you can lend money to 1,000 people, they're not going to repay you. And you can just lend money to like 10 million other people, they're going to repay you. And as a banking business, you're good to go. Like you just make some small loss and you made a lot of profits somewhere else. So evens out. Like it's like you're still doing a good business. But it doesn't it doesn't work in the use case that we're dealing with. Like one mistake can be big enough to create some kind of like a massive ripple effect that will just blow you of the surface of this planet. So that's why in our case, making sure that this trust is enabled, and that all these complexities around data, around security, around trust, around transparency have to be taken care of. Because one person will say, oh, in this small spot I have some doubts, boom, that's it, game over. We don't exist.
So you mentioned, oh, there's the puppy.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, working with a lot of top tier clients, Standard Chartered being one of them, and they like the system so much they immediately, rolled it out. Can you give me some sort of numbers that measure that success and some kind of stats that we can look at?
That's a good question. I don't think I can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can. Like what we are doing is we're taking like a secrecy with our customers really serious, like because they trust us with a lot of sensitive information, a lot of sensitive data, and we're helping them with dealing with this kind of like a very sensitive problem. So like my rule of thumb, and to me and to all our employees, to our team members, is that we have all these NDAs in place, and we can only say out loud whatever our customers already said out loud in public. Like, it's like we never say anything else. We never suggest something like, for example, like it should be like
okay, well, why don't I put it this way? How long between Standard Chartered taking the product and then rolling it out to 60? How long did that take before they immediately did that?
It was from the moment that it was turned on for the first time. It took a few months to be rolled out globally across the whole footprint of the bank. So this was this was a project that it was like a few months long project to make sure that it's covering everything. So like with customers that we're working with, these are always like a very big financial institution. So everything that you do on such a scale will be a very complex project. Like think about walking into like a big global financial group and just saying, let's just change something that you're doing around the world. Let's just make it happen. So on our side, what we need to do is we need to make sure that we make this process as smooth as possible from our side, so that the product is very mature, so it's very much a plug and play type of solution, so that everything is there, it's well documented, it's ready for all the tests that you need to put some software through. But after this is done, it's normal that it's not like one person, this kind of like a huge financial institution, to just say, okay, let me just push the button and it's on. It's a lot of different people that needs to perform a lot of different tests, that needs to obtain a lot of different approvals from a lot of different other peoples. So like making a change in how the big financial institution is doing what they're doing, it's always going to last time. Like it's just impossible. Just like technically speaking, to be honest with you, like technically speaking, we could do it in a week. Like if no one would need to approve anything, and everyone will say like, okay, let's go, it will be done in a week, and that's it. But that's only on a technical side. In the real world, when you try to deploy something like this in the real world, with all these stakeholders around you, with regulators around you, with auditors, with everyone, you just have to make sure that you're just all creating like one team, and you're just trying to tackle this like a huge change in an optimal way. But it's never going to be this like a 1 week of just technical rollout and that's it, unfortunately.
So cool. So I'm going to end our chat with just a question I've been asking people that we're very much hoping is going to be temporary. The whole globe is going through this lockdown and the global pandemic. How are you dealing with it, both with your company as in your CEO job and personally as well?
Oh, that's a very good question. So personally, before this all started in December last year, I moved to New York. So I'm in New York right now. So I already went through the virus by myself. My wife went through the virus too. So it's kind of, so personally, I know how it feels. Like I'm in a lockdown in the place, like right now, probably in some kind of like a biggest hotspot in the world for the pandemic right now. And I'm here. I live here now. I can't move. So it's so the personal level, it's fun. I'm walking around like I'm walking my puppy around like empty streets. Looks like in some kind of like a zombie apocalypse movies. It's really weird. When it comes to our business, what's very good, like we designed ourselves from day one to work mostly as a remote company. Okay. So even when we established Silent8 for the first time in Singapore, this is where Michael, our CTO, my co-founder, was already in Poland building an engineering team there. So like we were already designed ourselves from day one to be a remote team. And even later on, when we have more and more employees and more customers, our data scientists were always working from on-site with from customers' offices. So they were going into these banks and working on-site. So they were not in one office like Silent. We never like met in one office, all of us. We always were working remotely everywhere. So for us, it didn't change at all like how we work. The only difference is that people who used to go to customers' offices now are doing the same thing, but using video conference. But we were already like, we had tools and processes, and we were like set up to be a remote company. What I think that from our responsibility is right now is to help all these financial institutions, because this is the moment that they're under fire, and they need some smart and good solutions, like to help them basically not get defeated by but all this like evil around us, but but just to step up their game in this really hard conditions, to like when they have to maintain what they're doing, but they right now need to step up their game, and I feel that we can help them with that. So we are trying, so we're hiring people. We're trying to make our team bigger, more capable, and help more and more like businesses to do this. We created some kind of like a crazy awesome commercials for these guys to be able to like use us not as a long-term commitment, but just right now, just to help like offload this kind of like an immediate blow that the pandemic is causing. So we're doing a lot of like, in the area that we can help, we try to help. I don't want to do anything fake. I don't want to be planting trees right now or something like this. Like we can help in some areas. So I just want us to take the cost of this and try to help, because we're an expert in some areas. So like it's like this is how I view our role in this whole pandemic.
Excellent, Martin. Thank you very much for having our chat, and as always, stay safe.
Thank you very much. Stay safe too. Bye bye.